All right, this lesson involves writing linear equations. There's a number of methods that we can use, and one of the more common methods that we use to write a linear equation is by using what's called the point-slope form. Okay? And what we need is exactly what it's called. We need a point, meaning we need an x and we need a y. And what we'll do is we'll go back to the subscripts, kind of like we did with the slope formula, and we'll call it x sub 1, y sub 1, or my first x, my first y. A lot of times I always talk about it being, as you'll see in the formula, x minus my x value of the point, y minus my y value of the point. My slope, again, obviously, as you remember, is m. Okay, so just a quick example of how this will work. Say I'm given a point at negative 2, 4, and I'm given a slope of 1/2. Okay. My point, negative 2, 4, okay, we can look at that as my x1, y1. Okay, and all I'm going to do is substitute that into my point and slope form of the equation. Y minus my y sub 1, or my y value, which is 4, equals my slope, 1/2. And then we have a quantity, x minus my x1, or my first x, or the x in my coordinates, so minus negative 2, which of course becomes plus 2. Now, if they ask you for an equation, this is an equation. But at the same time, what we could do is we can rewrite this equation in other forms, depending on what we need to use it for down the road. We could rewrite this into slope-intercept form. And if we write it in slope-intercept form, again, what our goal is to get that y all by itself. So my first step there would be to get rid of my parentheses. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to distribute the 1/2 through. Okay. And now to get the y by itself, what I need to do is get rid of that negative 4, okay, which again, a lot of times you've heard me talk about change sides, change sides. So when it comes over here, it becomes a positive 4. Okay, so now in slope-intercept form, I have y equals 1/2 x plus 5. We could also write that into standard form. And again, standard form, remember the idea is that we want my coefficients to all be integer values. So number one thing I'd have to do is get rid of my fraction. And so what I'm going to do is take this equation now, and I'm going to multiply everything by the common denominator, which in this case is 2. And don't forget your constant. Also in standard form, again, remember what we do is we take and get my variables on the same side. So what I'm looking at again is my x value and want to make sure that that's positive. So since it's already positive on the right side, I want to leave it there. And so I'm going to bring the y term over, which means it's going to end up being negative. Okay. Same time, I'm going to need to get that 10 away from it, so I'm going to have that change sides as well. And there we have it in standard form now. All right, like I mentioned, we can use slope-intercept form to write equations, but this is the only time I really do it. Okay, I only really do it when I'm given my slope and I'm given my y-intercept. Okay, because then I can jump right in y equals m, my slope, x plus my b, 7. Okay. So that's about the only time I will use slope-intercept form. More often than not, I'm going to use point-slope form. So here's one for you to practice. Go ahead and pause the video. Okay, and what I want you to do is first just write the equation of this line that has a slope of negative 3 going through the point negative 8, 6 in point slope form. All right, so you can see that I took y minus my y value, 6, okay, equals my slope, negative 3, times that quantity again, x minus my x value minus the negative 8, again became positive 8. Okay, so there you have it in standard form. Again, pause the video and then rewrite this in slope-intercept form, please. All right, number one, again, what we want to do is distribute the slope through the parentheses. So I'm going to take the negative 3 times the x, the negative 3 times the 8. Okay. And then again, I'm going to throw the 6 over there. It's going to change sides, change signs, so it becomes a positive 6, leaving me with y equals negative 3x minus 18. Again, pause your video. Now let's rewrite that into standard form, please. That's actually a fairly simple situation. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my x value and see that it's negative, so that's why I want to take it back to the left side to make it positive 3x with that positive y, leaving you with negative 18. Now, I also did mention that it is possible to write an equation with this information using slope-intercept form. Okay, a little more work. And again, sometimes what can happen is there's points where we can make a mistake. But what we need is an x and a y that are on my line. Well, we have that in the negative 8, 6. So I can replace that y with the 6. I can replace that x with the negative 8. I also have my slope to be negative 3. The one thing I'm missing is my y-intercept. But now I can go in, take this information, and solve for b. I'm going to take this over, so I'm going to subtract 24. And if you remember from the previous slide, okay, when we rewrote it, my slope was negative 18. Okay. But a little more work sometimes. All right, so here's a common situation we'll run into. I'm given 2 points, and I'll be asked to write the equation for the line that goes through those 2 points. Now, if you think about point slope, you think about slope intercept. Both of those have slope involved. So number one, you need to find your slope. Okay. So we did that the other day. Pause the video, use your slope formula, and start with that. All right, so we found our slope here. Again, I took my first y, the negative 5, minus my second y, the 4. The first x, 1, minus a negative 3, which is my second x, became plus. I got negative 9 over 4. Okay. So now we have a slope, and if I think about slope-intercept form, I don't have an intercept, so that's why I don't really want to look at that form. But I do have my slope, and I do have a point. And so I can use point slope form again to come up with the equation for this line. Okay. Y minus my y coordinate, so minus a negative 5, equals my slope, negative 9 over 4, then that quantity x minus my x coordinate. Well, now let's say your friend says, well, I wanted to use the point negative 3, 4. Okay, and write an equation using that point with that slope negative 9, 4. So pause the video and go ahead and do that. All right, so down there on the green, you can see I took and got y minus 4 equals negative 9 fourths times that quantity x plus 3. Same information, 2 different equations. How do we know which person's right? Both of them are right. Okay, and the only way we're going to know that is if we put both equations into a common form, whether it be slope-intercept form or whether it be standard form. I'm just going to go through and show you this by quickly changing both equations into slope-intercept form. So again, going in and distributing the negative 9 fourths. Okay. And then what I'm going to need to do is take the 5 over again, so it becomes negative 5, which because of the fact we need common denominators, I'm going to switch to negative 20 over 4. And so I get y equals negative 9 fourths x. 9 minus the 20 leaves me with minus 11 over 4. If I do the same thing down here, first distributing the negative 9 fourths. Okay. This time when I bring a 4 over, it's positive, because we change in sides, change in signs. The denominator again common to be 4, so 16 over 4. So what I run into now this time when I put these two together is again negative 11 over 4, so now they are the same equation. All right, so the homework for this section is going to be on page 29, problems 5, 11 through 24, and then also problem number 27. Okay, remember, if they do talk about a line that's vertical or horizontal, okay, the idea of that it's going to be a y equals or x equals, and one thing you can talk about if they tell you that it's horizontal and that it goes through the point 7, negative 3. Okay. You can always sketch out a picture. 7, negative 3 is going to be down here, horizontal. And then what I tell people to do is look at another point on your line. And if I were to identify that point, it'd be 0, negative 3. So the piece that we're going to look at is what's the same every time. Well, my y value is the same in both cases, and that y value is negative 3. All right, good luck.